Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, Nick Schreck, and joining me tonight is my favorite. He's your favorite. He is the smartest guy we have, despite some sad David Johnson news. It's Nick Walsh. Walsh, what's up?
Not much, Shrek. How's it going over in your neighborhood?
It's good, man. I mean, I eked out a very, very, very close and uncomfortable win on Monday Night Football. No thanks to Russell Wilson. So at least in the fantasy football neighborhood, I feel a little bit better. But I was very panicked after having some bad years in our core league. But happy to be 1-1, which is not a great thing to say, but happy to be 1-1.
Yeah, I'm cruising in 0-2 in our biggest league for I think the first time ever in the history of that league, and I got to tell you, I don't feel real good within that one, and we'll get to it with the whole, just because of draft positioning and how I saw value, I ended up with David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald and whatnot. But I did that in multiple leagues. So let me tell you this story from this past week. So in this other league, my second highest buy-in league, of course, I got the same draft pick, third draft pick, went David Johnson, was able to get Larry Fitzgerald in the fourth. I was like, Fitz in the fourth, like this is great value for where I'm picking. And like on its face, it is. But then like you look at it and it's like, man, with this Cardinals defense, or Cardinals offense rather, like you just have way too much to do with it, right? So anyway, as we all know, the Cardinals fucking shit the bed this past week, and I put up very, very few points in that league. So the rule is if you finish in last in points for the week, you have to shotgun a Four Loko. And I have not drank a Four Loko since I was about 19 years old. So last night, I went to my local liquor store. I bought one. Their flavors are just red, black, and gold. They're not even like fruits or that kind of shit anymore.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah, so I buy red because I'm like, this is probably the least like potentially harmful, right? Turns out it's like kind of a red licorice flavor, which is like one of my least favorite flavors in the world. Like I don't like Twizzlers, I don't like red vines. So last night, I right before I ate dinner, I took off my shirt and shotgunned a 24-ounce Four Loko, and was immediately just like shit-faced and like very nearly threw up. It was very terrible. But that's what fantasy football does to you. You get in a league with some people that you think are your friends, and then 2 weeks into the season, they're making you video yourself shotgunning the grossest drink you can possibly imagine.
Walsh, I'll tell you what, I feel for you, but I'm also a little envious that I didn't get to see the video of you shirtless chugging the Four Loko, which immediately made you.
I can send it to you. I'm also wearing a Lucha Libre mask just for fun in it. So
I mean, when you're going all in, you might as well go all in. So yeah, the mask is just fitting.
I mean, honestly though, the mask made it harder to shotgun. So I don't know if I'll be doing that next time. If there is a next time, which hopefully there isn't.
I don't know, Walsh. That statement there was a little concerning. Like, oh, next time, like you're already preparing. Like, shit, am I going back to the red licorice, or am I gonna?
I mean, I still got two Cardinals on my team. Wasn't able to unload either of them yet. So
fair enough, Walsh. Fair enough. I own quite a few shares of Larry Fitzgerald myself, so I feel some pain, but I don't own both of them. So I'm glad I stayed away from some of your hype, because every year I get wrapped up. And I'm like, oh, Walsh has got it. And then I always pick the wrong one to get on board with. So I'm at least not chugging Four Lokos. But that's an interesting take on fantasy football, punishing you week by week. Keeps people honest.
Yeah, definitely does.
I mean, I'll be honest. In the one league I eked out, actually, I eked out 2 close Monday night wins. And then on my other league, I won by half a point because of the touchdown by the Seahawks. The Bears defense dropped by half a point. And I won, thankfully, because of it.
Wow.
But in that league, I'm like, I have the lowest points scored by like far. It's just like disgusting. And like, as you're saying it, I'm like, man, I could be chugging 2 Four Lokos by now, shirtless, 2 weeks into the season. So I consider myself blessed, at least at this moment in time. But who knows? Who knows what kind of sick shit we're going to agree to on this podcast or future episodes, as we tend to get heated when we talk about Eric Ebron and Tavon Austin and anybody else some classic names you want to throw into the fucking pot.
Oh yeah, man.
But Walsh, let's give a shout out here to Auction Draft before we finally kick off into the Week 3 preview. While the NFL season, guys, may have officially kicked off, your hopes of drafting a fantasy team for 2018 isn't gone. With Auction Draft, you can draft your team at any time and have a 5-week season with your friends, family, coworkers, or strangers, whatever you really want to do. But that way, guys, you when you pay way too much for Le'Veon Bell, hoping he shows up, which at this point he's not, you'll get another shot to get it right in 5 weeks. So you can sign up now by going to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/auction draft and use the promo code LTFF and get 50% off your league. Guys, you could have multiple 5-week seasons with that sign up. It's a cool way to play fantasy football, particularly if you happen to be, say, a David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald owner. So may not be a bad idea, Walsh. We'll see if we can get you in there.
Yeah, I might need to do that week 5 or after week 5. Just kind of figure some new things out a little bit.
Yeah, we'll pitch that to your league after you've chugged your third Four Loco of the season, 5 weeks deep. But thankfully, Walsh, it is still the best time of the year because football is back. Fantasy football is here. We are in our glory here at LTFF. And, Vinny and Rogers gave us a nice preview of the Jets-Browns game. And, I know you're going to be enjoying that game with lots of gin and tonics in hand at a nice free happy hour. So not a bad way to watch the game on Thursday night.
No, not too bad. I'm going to enjoy it a lot. Hopefully I don't remember the end of the game, and hopefully work doesn't suck too much on Friday.
Yeah, well, hey, sometimes that's the price we pay. But remember, Walsh, not all heroes wear capes. And if you don't remember the game, I consider you a hero. So
thanks, man.
With that, dude, let's move in and talk about the first game on our slate. We're talking Indianapolis Colts at the Philadelphia Eagles. Over-under is 47.5. Phillies -6.5. They get Carson Wentz back. I think that's the biggest storyline, obviously, coming out. Cleared. We'll be back there playing for the Eagles. And the Eagles have looked, we'll call it suspect, I guess. They've won, they've lost, whatever. But Jay Ajayi banged up. He hasn't been officially ruled out, correct? It's just that they don't expect him to play.
Yeah. So what I was reading was that it's possible he suits up. It's more likely that he suits up than Sproles does. Okay. So I mean, it's kind of up in the air at this point. I mean, either way, Jay Ajayi's kind of been very touchdown dependent. So I don't know if you want to be rolling out a hurt touchdown dependent running back. But what's your opinion on Corey Clement? Because I mean, like, if he's out there, he's kind of an interesting guy to me.
Yeah, I think short of hearing that Jay Ajayi is fully healthy, which I don't expect obviously to hear. So even if he suits up, I think Corey Clement's a nice, throw him in your flex play kind of there for the Eagles. He had 85 yards on just 11 touches last week. But I don't expect them to lean on Wentz as they normally would have. He's coming back off the injury. They're going to get him out there, get him comfortable playing the ball, some dump offs. So I think Corey Clement's a good play for someone that was probably either on your wire or sitting on your bench. The Colts have allowed 22 receptions for 187 yards through the first 2 weeks to opposing backfields. So I think for the type of player Corey Clement is, it's a nice thing. I'd rather Jay Ajayi just gets ruled out, quite frankly, but I don't know that happens.
Yeah, that's definitely the ideal scenario, I think, for fantasy football. But yeah, we'll definitely see. What about Wentz? He's starting. Like, do you think he's a guy you would be playing if you drafted him?
I'm not. I think I've always been a wait and see kind of guy, to my own detriment sometimes. But you see him come back out here, his ability to rush the ball. We'll see how he looks moving. Again, they wouldn't clear him if they didn't feel confident. But I'm a wait and see guy on Wentz. I'm not rolling him out there unless you are just totally fucked at QB and that's what you want to do. But I don't think there's anybody that should be forced into it. I'm not doing it. Are you?
I'm like kind of on the fence. I think it sort of depends on what quarterbacks are available on your waiver wire, because he definitely has a ceiling, but you might just kind of be chasing that ceiling. I mean, the Colts defense fucking sucks. So there's always that, but you're probably on the smarter side of what we're saying here.
Yeah, I'm just more risk adverse. I've always, and like I said, to my detriment at times. But I think I do think a lot of people that drafted Wentz are going to want to play him, seeing him active. So to each their own. If you're okay with the like you said, upside, bad Colts defense, it's there. It's just not a risk I'm going to take.
Yeah, definitely fair.
So we look at the rest of the team here, Walsh. We got Zach Ertz, who, if you own him, you're playing him. He goes out there. He leads all tight ends and targets with 23 through the first 2 weeks. He'll continue to be Zach Ertz, and Don really hopes that he is, along with Travis Kelce, 2 tight end owner. And I was going to come say something really mean, but we'll leave it at 2 tight end owner because Don's 2-0 and I am not. So go Don. Nelson Aguilar. He's been Nelson Aguilar. He's getting all the receptions. He's had at least 8 receptions in each of the first 2 games. If you own him, you're rolling him out there now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with the season-ending injury to Mike Wallace and Alshon Jeffrey is still not back. There's really no one else here. I mean, we'll see if someone else can sort of emerge. I know they just cut DeAndre Carter, who was a guy who they were kind of rolling out as their 3rd receiver week 1. So they apparently don't have anyone that they like. Or that they really trust that much. So for right now, the targets are really just going to be funneled between Ertz and Aguilar, which makes both of them great fantasy plays.
There you go. It's all about volume. Is there anybody else on the Eagles for you, Walsh?
No, I'm good there.
Yeah. All right. Let's flip to the other side. Let's talk about the Colts. Andrew Luck. I'll say this as a side note. I love, and you probably have seen it on Twitter as well. The Twitter account for him where he talks all. I can't even think of the way to describe it now. He puts out like
Civil War general.
Yes, that's it. The Civil War general. And I love him, whether they win, lose, when he was ready to come back, just seeing those tweets come out, because just gives me a little extra love for Andrew Luck. So something stupid and not football related, but fun to read nonetheless. Luck ranks currently Walsh 20th in passing points per attempt to start the season. And he comes out here, obviously T.Y. Hilton. You own him, you're starting Ty. If you own Luck, I think you're playing Luck as well. I don't stream like you, so you may have a different alternative here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to own Luck. Like, I drafted Luck in a couple leagues and just promptly dropped him before week 1, which wasn't even necessarily the right call, but he's just not throwing the ball downfield enough right now. He's dumping the ball off to his tight ends. He's throwing it to T.Y. Hilton as the consistent target, but he doesn't really have anyone stretching the field besides T.Y., and the Colts don't seem to want to make him do that. So I don't think he has the ceiling to really warrant a start unless he's in a very, very good matchup. And Eagles on the road to me isn't that matchup.
Fair enough. And then Walsh, I do want to ask you about the Colts running back situation, because you're kind of looking at a 3-headed monster of just eating into each other, of who's going to be the guy, who gets the touchdowns. And the Eagles have been pretty good against the run. So do you want any part of the running game going in here into the Sunday's game?
No, not this week. And I don't even really think any of these guys necessarily need to be rostered, including Marlon Mack. It's just at the best until we get either an injury or someone takes the lead, which, neither of those things are guaranteed. These guys are guys that you're throwing in your flex and hope they either get a couple receptions or get in the end zone. So for me, I don't see the point in playing any of them or even really owning any of them. I'm dropping Jordan Wilkins in a couple leagues this week with the hope of picking up guys like Gio Bernard and Philip Lindsay.
Fair enough. Yeah, Lindsay's been, Gio too with the opportunity there in Cincinnati, but I agree. You don't really need to own any of these Colts guys. And I think ultimately, Walsh, it leaves us here with, arguably the biggest name on Let's Talk Fantasy Football's podcast, Eric Ebron, joined by Jack Doyle at the tight end position. And as one of the former presidents of the Eric Ebron fan club, personally for me, it's like watching someone grow up and just go out into the world and succeed. So it's really nice for me to see Ebron actually find the end zone, because I believed in him for so long and was so wrong. So good for you, Eric. He just kind of continues to get in the end zone, but his floor is kind of non-existent if he doesn't find the end zone. So that kind of sucks. Jack Doyle, though, running I'm trying to see what my numbers are a little jumbled here. He has a better passing volume here in this offense versus Eric Ebron.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack Doyle's been out there on the field way more. He's out targeting Ebron 15-9. We know Doyle's targets aren't really going to be as valuable as Ebron's. You would think Ebron, just because he's specifically going to be in there in the red zone, and he's slightly more of an up the seam field stretcher type guy when he's not in the red zone than Doyle is. So the targets definitely aren't as valuable as Ebron's, but I mean, Eric Ebron isn't going to catch a touchdown every week. This isn't a guy who was a double-digit touchdown guy with the Lions. He was like a 7 touchdown a year type guy. So he's already got 2 this year. I'm not saying 7 is his absolute ceiling, but if you're playing Ebron based on those touchdowns, you're playing him based on things that are less likely to repeat themselves than Jack Doyle's targets.
Regression is fucking real, Walsh. That's what we'll go with. Classic line there. Do you have anything else on the Colts?
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's pick them. I'm taking I'm gonna take the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Eagles too. I don't trust the Colts for shit.
Yeah, fair enough. Hopefully Eric Ebron finds the end zone because good for him, but I still take the Eagles. Moving on, Walsh, let's talk about my computer's frozen. Cincinnati Bengals at the Carolina Panthers, coming in at an over-under of 43.5, Carolina -3. And let's start on the Bengals side of the ball. Andy Dalton coming out and looking like the Red Rifle, throwing multiple touchdowns in 3 straight games dating back to last season. Thrown multiple touchdowns in 11 of 16 games since Bill Lazor took over as the OC, which is tied for the second highest in the league over that time span. So Andy Dalton making some shit happen.
Yeah, Dalton's been great so far, and this is something that Vinny and I sort of talked about a decent amount in the preseason. Is that the Bengals' offense was always going to be better this year, and it's really shown it so far. They've been very, very good. Dalton, Carolina's not the best matchup this week, and that low over under has me a bit scared. As well as the fact that just his touchdown passes are going to, like, he threw 4 touchdowns last week. You can't expect that every single week. But that being said, he's not the worst start in the world like this week. Like, I'd rather start him than Andrew Luck, I think. As we talked about in the last game, I'd rather start him than Carson Wentz. So far of the teams that we've talked about, he's the most startable quarterback that we've got going.
Which is saying something, but he has proven it. So Red Rifle out there, making it happen. And Walsh, let's go right to the running back and talk, Gio Bernard, because obviously the Joe Mixon injury, I believe I saw today, as a partial meniscus tear for him. So, Gio Bernard is the guy that people are adding on waivers if they haven't already. What do you expect out of Gio? Because we saw him obviously in there with Mixon and last year and his role. Do you think I would say he's a running back too?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen Gio be productive when he's sort of the guy in this backfield. And in this game where they're, a little bit of an underdog, I could see Gio catching 5-6 balls. I think 18 touches is like completely within the realm of possibility. We should note that they did sign Thomas Rawls today. And that might give some people some pause. But I don't think it really needs to. They're not going to bring in Rawls off the street and immediately be giving him 12 carries a game. Gio's still the guy. He's still the guy in the run game. He's still the guy in the pass game, basically until Mixon comes back.
Nailed it, Walsh. I agree. Thomas Rawls is nothing but a blip on the radar and nothing to be concerned about, especially as you head in here. AJ Green also looks outstanding for the Bengals offense. He can't keep up the touchdown pace he's currently on, but killing it as always. Vinny, super, super ecstatic. That we have no doubt about. His target share is actually lower to start the season than it was the previous 2 seasons, but he should be fine here against Carolina in that secondary. Andy Dalton, I think, connects there with AJ Green for a touchdown, and I think he has a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AJ's floor is like 5 catches for 65 yards. So you're playing him every single week.
No question about it. We come down to, Tyler Boyd. Are you dabbling here? I guess is a better question, because you could say he's a super deep play if you want, based on some of his target percentages and whatnot. I'm not, but I know sometimes you're a little more analytical than I am.
So I think he's a guy who should be owned for sure. We were all drafting John Ross as sort of that late round sleeper within this offense. John Ross hasn't been able to do it. I believe he only has 6 targets in the first 2 weeks. So he hasn't been what we thought that he was going to be. But Tyler Boyd's got 14 targets over these first 2 weeks. He's being used consistently. He caught a touchdown this past week. I'm not like rushing out anywhere to play him. But yeah, I think if you've got a wide receiver who's, been a little bit disappointing or maybe not have the role that you expected on your bench, I think Tyler Boyd's a great pickup.
I agree. You see the increase in the target percentage there for him. And if you wanted to take a dart throw there, do your thing. But I agree, add him for sure. Walsh tight end spot, Tyler Eifert. He ran 30 pass routes in week 2 after just 16 snaps in week 1. But you obviously got Tyler Croft out there. I'm spinning the wheel elsewhere. I'm not playing Tyler Eifert.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think this is almost like a prove it week for him, where if he continues that trend upward with more usage, then maybe you're considering him again. But yeah, the role hasn't been what we expected. Only 7 targets over the first 2 weeks. You don't need to play him this week.
Fair enough. Anything else before we jump over to the Panthers?
Nah, let's talk about those Panthers.
Let's do it. Cam Newton comes out, shot out of the cannon, at least fantasy points wise, after a disappointing week 1. He goes out there and plays really well. Took a nasty hit in that game on Sunday, but glad to see he's at least in one piece and okay. He'll be fine. I think he finishes like QB, 13, 15. I don't think it's going to be a shootout like it was last week for him trying to catch up a point. Well, it wasn't a shootout, but to catch up, get those points at the end there. I'm looking elsewhere, I think, if I'm a Cam Newton owner.
Okay. See, I'm okay with starting him. I'm not opposed to like looking elsewhere, but I don't know, like outside of Fitzpatrick, I don't really know how many credible guys that are on the waiver wire. I'm really looking to start over Cam. So I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, would you play Andy Dalton or Cam Newton?
Probably Cam, just because of the rushing upside.
Okay.
I think that's the difference maker there for me, but it is close. I think they're both in the same range this week in terms of like low end QB1, high end QB2, or around the kind of area where you've got maybe like a Blake Bortles or
Okay.
Like that kind of start. So yeah, I'm not opposed to benching Cam. I don't think you need to bench Cam.
Okay. Fair enough, Walsh. Christian McCaffrey, 18 carries for 87 yards on the ground. He's played 85% and 94% of the snaps. And he's received a 35.2% of the Carolina passing targets. Bengals have struggled to guard backs in space. Christian McCaffrey here is going to have himself a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely. Just his passing volume is enough, in a PPR league that he's an RB1 no matter what, pretty much. And against this Bengals defense that have given up almost 150 yards through the air to running backs over the first 2 weeks, like it's a no-brainer.
Yep, he's in your lineup. Another guy that I actually think is a no-brain start as well, Devin Funchess. Now posted 14.2 points per game with Greg Olsen out of the lineup. At least 5 catches or a touchdown and 4 straight with Olsen inactive. I think you could throw him into your lineup and feel good about what kind of floor you're looking at here with him and Cam.
Yeah, absolutely. Funchess is one of those guys where in a PPR league, you're expecting maybe 12 to 14 points. And then if he catches a touchdown or happens to get like a long catch, you're just happy, with what you get past there. The guy I want to ask you about too, because I'm pretty in on him and I'm considering picking him up in a couple of leagues where the waivers haven't gone through yet, is Ian Thomas. Against this Bengals defense that's really struggled against the tight end, I'm pretty in on Ian Thomas.
I'm fine if you want to throw that dart, Walsh, because the Bengals they're brutal against the tight end so far, really. And there's no reason to think that's going to change here. It's kind of like how it was always with the Cardinals, like you're playing a tight end against the Cardinals, because they're just historically bad. And I think the matchup here aligns to the same thing of, hey, you want to take that DFS dart throw, you want to put him in your season long lineups. All you need is the touchdown or a couple catches in the yards. We just talked about Ebron, who people are starting with somewhat level of confidence on just finding the end zone, which he's not going to do every week. So I think you have better upside here with Ian Thomas, and I'm all for it, man. I'd go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to show the point, I'd rather, like, in this game, he's the tight end to play over Eifert, I think.
Yes.
Without a doubt, really.
Yep, which is pretty wild to say, but matchup and everything else that we've seen, Ian Thomas, roll him on out there.
Absolutely.
Who are you taking here, Walsh?
I'm going to go Cincinnati. I like them.
I am as well. Vinny, we are going to sweep the Bengals right on through, and we're going to move right into the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars obviously look good coming out and beating the Patriots. The Titans, surprising me, coming out and playing well without Marcus Mariota there and walking away with the win. But let's start on the Titans side of the ball. I think really the only person I'm interested in for fantasy purposes, Walsh, and not to just sum it up, is Dion Lewis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's the only person you should even think about playing this week. He's one of the only players who's actually been productive for them within the first couple of weeks. And then two, Corey Davis's volume hasn't really translated into much besides like okay catch numbers against Jacksonville's secondary. Like, I don't want to touch him. Jonnu Smith was kind of thought about as an interesting guy maybe a little bit last week, didn't do anything, 0 catches. And Derrick Henry in a game that we expect Tennessee to lose is really just not worth playing at all.
Nope, I agree. We're on the same page, and it feels weird because I feel like we used to do this about the Rams. But moving on past the Titans because it's just Dion Lewis, let's jump to the other side of the ball, right to the Jaguars, our quickest preview yet. Blake Bortles, looked good. We were just talking about with him being, on the wire, kind of in that realm as we were talking about Andy Dalton and some of these other guys. Let's see, he's playing home against a defense that has started the season off 23rd in passing points allowed per attempt. And we'll see what happens with Leonard Fournette. TJ Yeldon didn't get as much use as I thought he was going to really last week on the ground against the Patriots. So whether Bortles is going to throw it a little bit more, we'll see. But Keelan Cole, awesome catch, as everyone has seen that clip a million times by now. Blake Bortles, again, he's right in that realm there, outside the bottom of QB1, I think. Yeah,
he's a fine start this week. I don't think he has the ceiling because you don't really expect Tennessee to score too much. So like they're not going to need to just chuck the ball around the field. But somewhere in between 13 and 18 fantasy points, I'd say is where you're probably looking at him landing, which is not great, but it's fine.
Yeah, serviceable. Walsh, running back situation, Leonard Fournette. I'm trying to pull up any injury update news on him.
He practiced today.
Return to practice. So we would think that means we should see him back on the field really for this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, Wednesday is the day that you kind of look at, like, if someone's going that day, then they're probably going to go. And if they're not, there's a chance they won't go. Fournette went today. TJ Yeldon didn't. You never feel comfortable playing guys coming off of injuries or on the injury report. But if Fournette's playing against, as a home favorite against a defense that's not great, I think you got to play him. And then just depending on the injury news as we keep going, Corey Grant's an interesting guy to just keep a teensy eye on.
All right, there you go. A little nugget there. Walsh dangles out in front of you guys. So keep your eye out there on him. For the wide receiver spot, Walsh, Cole, Moncrief, Westbrook, I think they're all wide receiver threes, give or take, if you're going to roll them out there. Just like you said, we're not expecting Bortles to have to light the world on fire. So they probably do run the ball with Fournette a decent amount. But I think they're all kind of in that realm, at least target wise, they've been pretty consistent across the three.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Cole is going to get overplayed after that catch and after that big week he had this past week. The reality of the situation is that him and Moncrief each have 12 targets. Dede Westbrook has 11 targets. And this isn't a team that's probably going to have to toss the ball around the field too much. I think they're all kind of dart throws week to week. And while I like Keelan Cole, I think he's very talented. And I think he's the best one to own and play out of the three. I don't think any of them are a must play on any given week unless we see some sort of separation in playing time or targets.
Fair enough. No argument here, Walsh. At the tight end position, ASJ, I'm going to spin the wheel. I'd rather roll with our boy Ian Thomas that we talked about before.
Yeah, me too.
Which, again, we're hyping up Ian Thomas here, but matchup and what we've seen, it just seems like the better play.
Yeah, it's a tough defensive matchup, and ASJ is not anything special.
True. Nothing special at all. Walsh, I'm going to take the Jaguars here.
Yeah, me too.
All right, sweep it on through. So far we are, I think we're aligned in all of our picks, Walsh, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to cover 4 more games, and before we can wrap up for the part 1 of the week 3 preview. So let's hear from Auction Drafts, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, we are back and ready to rock and roll. That was Auction Drafts. Again, guys, 5-week seasons. You can still draft. You can draft and sign up at any point throughout this season, as long as there's 5 weeks left. So if you're frustrated with your league and what you've got going on, check them out, auctiondraft.net. LTFF is the promo code. It'll save you a nice chunk of change and get exposed to Auction Draft a little bit and see if it's something you guys want to tackle maybe next year going forward. But Walsh, let's do it. Let's talk Saints and the Falcons. Atlanta is -3 over under a 53. You're starting your studs of Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. And then, if you own Drew Brees, you're rolling him out there, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's really wild how much of this offense has really been funneled between those two guys this year, Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Michael Thomas has 28 catches in 2 games. That is completely insane and historically so. But and this is, in terms of Kamara, this is an Atlanta offense that just gave up 14 catches to Christian McCaffrey. So if you like pass catching running backs, this seems to be sorry, did I say offense? I meant defense. But this seems to be a defense that is good to target pass catching running backs against. So Kamara's a great play. Thomas is a great play. Drew Brees is a great play. What do you think about Ted Ginn? Because he's had some decent games. Are you willing to throw him out there?
Ted Ginn, I'm trying to look at the stats I have here. He thrives more at home, averaging just 9.4 points per game on the road. And he has been a wide receiver 3 or better in just 3 of those 8 games. I am not going to roll him out here against the Falcons. I think Kamara eats. Michael Thomas has himself a day as well. I think I'd just rather roll the dice elsewhere on Ted Ginn. If they were home, I'd probably give him a little bit more of an edge.
Okay, that's fair. I think he's okay to roll out as a flex with 13 targets in the first 2 weeks. But he's not a guy you should prioritize playing. It's just one of those where if you're looking through your roster and you're pretty thin, I think Ted Ginn's one of those guys who you can almost always kind of throw out in the flex just because it's hey, he might catch a 50-yard touchdown.
Well, he definitely has the upside of it just happening.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And then he consistently does it, and everyone is continually shocked, and we shouldn't be at this point because that's kind of just what Ted Ginn does. I have nothing else on the Saints. Well, that's kind of my 4 big.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, Falcons side of the ball, Matt Ryan. He's been scouted. I'm just looking at my notes here. Saints pass defense was better in week 2 than in week 1. Matt Ryan's going to pass. He's going to spread the ball around. But in 12 games since 2012, with an implied team total of 28 or more points, he's delivered just 3 QB1 finishes. So statistically, the odds are not in his favor here to finish as a QB1. I'd probably look elsewhere from a Matt Ryan owner.
Yeah, I look at that high over under and the fact that they're favorites, and to me it's hard to stay away. I mean, I know that they're this is a divisional matchup, so the Saints know him. That's certainly a thing. But for me, I think he's a fine start. I think those of us who are looking at his week 2 totals, just please know that he finished with 2 rushing touchdowns in that game, and that's not going to happen again this season. But still, with that, I'm okay with rolling out Matt Ryan. I think maybe slightly above that Blake Bortles, Andy Dalton tier for me this week.
Okay.
So it's fine with me, but it's a little tough. It's definitely not, he's just a weird guy. He's hard to judge always, pretty much.
Yep. Just when you think you can trust Matt Ryan, you can't. He always pulls the rug right out from under your feet. But while sure thing, Julio Jones, Tevin Coleman, both those guys, if you own them, you're playing them. Coleman tallied 20 touches for 125 yards last week, finishing as running back 13 without a touchdown. So good things to come if you drafted Tevin Coleman and we're sitting on him, as Freeman is obviously banged up.
Yeah, we've got enough evidence at this point in their careers that when Freeman's gone, Tevin Coleman is a guy you can start without any hesitation. I've heard people talk a little bit about Ito Smith, the rookie behind him. Even if he gets some of the work, it's fine. Coleman is still a guy to roll out. Julio's an interesting play. For me, that's kind of about it for the Falcons.
Yep, I have no interest in anybody else. Spin the wheel at tight end. That's as clean as we can put it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Walsh, who are you taking?
I'm going to go with the Saints here.
I am also going to go with the Saints. Kamara is going to have himself a fucking day, maybe 50 fantasy points. Would not shock me in the least. 3 touchdowns and a ton of yardage.
So you're going to beat me on DK with him this week? I actually haven't looked up his price yet, but
I have not either. I can't imagine he's cheap.
No, I mean, he's got to be like getting up towards 10K now, right? You would think. But
he's up there, yeah, for sure. But I mean, for the production, I think it's one I'll own him. Actually, I was talking to Vinny about our matchup last week, and I was like, I didn't even realize it when I looked at it the head-to-head, because he obviously beat us pretty well last week. And then I texted him like, man, I'm like, I hope you played that in the Millionaire Maker. I said, because you would have won yourself, like 120 bucks, something like that. It kind of broke out. And he's like, no, I didn't. Like, 1, thanks for making me feel like a piece of shit. 2, he's like, I beat all you guys with Frank Gore in my lineup.
Yeah, that was like insane to me. Like, you know how when you look at people's lineups and you're just like, there's no reason to ever really play that person despite like the price or whatever it is. Like, you just can't rationalize doing it. I was so mad that Vinny just went off with fucking Frank Gore in his lineup. It was so stupid. But anyway, whatever. He beat us.
Yeah, he beat us. He would have beat us if he left the spot empty. But he would have been even more mad if he played that in the Millionaire Maker and he only finished where he did because he played Frank Gore.
Yeah,
but I was a little embarrassed that I lost to a Frank Gore lineup. I won't lie. Yeah. Oh well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Walsh, on to this week. Hopefully, better week ahead for us in DFS and season long. Denver Broncos playing at the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's -5. The over under 43.5. Case Keenum for the Broncos. I know he's played well. People did go out and I know add him after week 1 and all that nonsense, but I want no part of Case Keenum here in this matchup.
No, I was one of the people who went out and did add him after week 1. As a streamer against the Raiders, it didn't work out. The Baltimore defense, it's weird because I want to target them while Jimmy Smith is still suspended. The splits between when they do and don't have Jimmy Smith are just extremely substantial. And I know Andy Dalton just threw 4 touchdowns against the Baltimore defense, but I can't justify Keenum after he just had like an okay, mediocre game against the Raiders. I really just can't do it. The guy I do want to play though is Phillip Lindsay in the goddamn backfield, dude.
Crazy. And everyone was like, oh, it has to be Royce Freeman. He's the guy. Obviously, preseason as we went in, and then Phillip Lindsay out here comes out and is taking everybody by storm in the fantasy world. Holy shit, great waiver wire ad. and he's going to be a big piece for teams as we move into the season.
Yeah, I can't believe NFL teams also like went through 7 rounds of a draft and not a single one of them was like this guy. It's like this guy didn't get drafted, but yeah, he's really seeming to be that guy that you want to play in a situation exactly like this game where Denver is a road underdog.
Yep.
If you expect Baltimore to go up in this game, then Phillip Lindsay is going to get more work than Royce Freeman, and he's been by far the more effective player. So yeah, all about it. And I think you can sit Freeman too if we're talking about the running backs.
Yeah, I think Freeman he's super game script and dependent, and he's goal line dependent. And in this matchup, it's Lindsay all the way. I'm fine with sitting Royce Freeman. Lindsay should be the guy if you're playing him. Flip side of the ball. Do you care? Do we need to comment on the wide receivers, Walsh?
I mean, I think they're both starts. I think you can start both Sanders and Thomas pretty easily. Thomas has been getting the targets. Manny's been just really good. He's been doing Manny shit.
Yeah, man. He always finds a way. Always finds a way. So yeah, although we don't like Keenum, the wide receivers are going to be just fine in the matchup here. Flip side of the ball, Ravens, Joe Flacco. I want nothing to do with Joe Flacco, but he's looked good for Joe Flacco. As nice a compliment as I'll give him.
Yeah, he's been better than Joe Flacco of last year.
Yes,
that's about it.
Yep. We look at wide receiver John Brown. He was a talk of camp. Obviously, that spilled into the regular season here. The Broncos aren't as good against the wide receiver as we once knew them. Still good. I think John Brown is a nice player. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, I mean, Crabtree and Brown both had 10 targets each this past week. So both of them are kind of getting looks. Brown had the much more productive game and he got the touchdown. So, I mean, to me, just Crabtree's looks are, again, like we were saying earlier with, I forget even the 2 players, but Crabtree's looks aren't as valuable as John Brown's looks. Yeah. So, I mean, like if both of them are going to get 10 targets, you're obviously going to want to be playing John Brown because he's just getting the ball on deeper routes. He's more likely to break a deep touchdown. He's got a way higher ceiling. So to me, Brown's the play there. Crabtree, I think you can sit unless you like really need to play him. I don't think he's the worst start, but I don't think he's a must start by any means.
I completely agree. And Walsh, when we look at the running back situation here, Alex Collins, Buck Allen, Buck Allen, he's just kind of falls into the end zone. I mean, he's outsnapped him 72-69. He's running more pass routes so far in the season, but he seems to be just more finding the end zone versus Alex Collins. I don't know what I'm doing. I would play Alex Collins over Buck Allen.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking pissing me off. I drafted Alex Collins all over the place. He clearly looks better when he has the ball in his hands. He misses more tackles. He hits guys harder. He's a better runner. Like you can see that from like watching it on TV as like a dumb fan, like you watch those 2 guys play football and it's just like, man, Alex Collins is good. Buck Allen is the most mad guy I've ever seen in my life play running back. So I don't get exactly what they're doing with that, but in a game, like I'm going to keep going on the Alex Collins train as my RB2 in a couple leagues because I need to know whether or not this is legitimate. And if it doesn't work out in a game where they're a 5-point home favorite, you wouldn't expect it to be a blowout like week 1, but you wouldn't expect them to be playing from behind like week 2. I need to know what some regular ass game script looks like for Alex Collins. And I'm not going to miss the game where he, hopefully settles into what we hoped would be his role with the team.
Fair enough. Well, stay in the course. I can respect that. We'll see if we can get the Ravens on board because they do like to see Buck Allen fall into the end zone.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I can feel your blood boiling from here. I can feel it. You're super upset, and I think that's only going to continue as we get into some of these later games. But that does it for the Ravens, right?
Yeah, that'll do it.
So let's pick it. I am going to take the Broncos.
I'll take Baltimore.
All right, first split. Here we go. On to the New York Giants at the Houston Texans. Houston -6, over-under is 41.5. I have a fun fact here for you, Wallace. The Giants and Texans are 2 of 4 teams that have not run a snap with the lead yet through the first 2 weeks of the season.
That is unbelievable.
So fucking wild. I could believe it about the Giants.
Houston, I wouldn't have expected that.
I believe it about the Giants because they're just piss poor, but Houston definitely surprises me a little bit. But let's start on the Giants side of the ball. If you own Saquon Barkley, you're playing Saquon Barkley. No questions asked. And I think the only thing to comment on Eli is that I really enjoyed the memes that came out about him this week from his face in that Dallas game.
Yeah, those were good. His play was not good. Saquon got like 14 catches, which is just insane. And then Odell is obviously a start.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like we can brush over those guys pretty quickly, but what do you think about Evan Ingram? Because I'm a little torn on whether or not he's a guy you should really be starting.
I hated Evan Ingram coming into the season, and that was one point that Don and I were very divisive on the podcast. I'm concerned about the targets he's seeing, with Beckham back and healthy. He saw 7 targets last week. You can go either way. I think if you drafted Ingram, you're playing Ingram. Yes. You probably don't have another option. It's kind of one of those where, like, I don't own any shares, so it's easy for me to be a fence sitter. But I think if I did, I wouldn't be rolling the dice on someone on the wire. I'd rather just roll it on Ingram. And I think that's kind of your situation. If you own him, you're playing him. That's all I really got.
Yeah, that's fair. I think speaking to sort of the dearth of tight ends at the streamer range so far this year, which I am currently seeing affect me a lot. But Evan Ingram has 12 targets over the first 2 weeks. He's been like very efficient with those targets, and he won't always be that efficient. But I think any tight end who's gotten 12 targets over the past 2 weeks is like worth starting at this point.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, if you own him, you're playing them. You don't have a better option. You're playing on pure speculation the other side. And I have absolutely zero interest in Sterling Shepard. Very, very tough matchup here against Colvin.
Yeah, no, not for me.
All right, let's talk flip side of the ball then, Walsh. Texans, Deshaun Watson bounced back with a top 10 week last week. It's the Giants, so I'm not super concerned about Deshaun Watson back there behind the O-line, throwing to DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, who I'm interested to hear what you have to say because you typically have something on regression, which would apply to Will Fuller typically.
Yeah, so I normally do, and right now I honestly don't. Will Fuller had 9 targets this past week, and that offense, that passing offense, really seems to be working between those 2 wide receivers, Hopkins and Fuller. Between the 2 of them, they had 20 of the targets. That was the majority of the targets. Yep. My gripe with Will Fuller has always been that he'll put up 2 catches for 90 yards and 1 touchdown on 3 targets, which always seems unsustainable, and then he keeps doing it, which is a testament to how good he is at doing that and how good Deshaun Watson is at finding him on those kind of plays. If Will Fuller is going to get 9 targets, or even if Will Fuller is going to get 6 or 7 targets a week, Will Fuller is easily a guy you play every single week, like without a doubt. So, I mean, if he keeps getting this usage that he got last week, Will Fuller is worth way more than what you paid for him in the draft.
I fully support it, Walsh, and I was almost like a tear coming out of my eye a little bit. It's almost like Ebron for me. I've watched him grow and evolve, and now I'm watching you grow here on Will Fuller. You're in good company with Eric Ebron. I don't know a better person that I could compare you to, and I think you're honored deep down, even if you won't share it. I
appreciate it, Chuck. I am honored.
I might just start calling you Nick Ebron, but we'll see. I'll work that one out a little bit on my my phrasing. Your excitement actually just accelerates my enthusiasm for it, Mr. Running game, Walsh, Lamar Miller. They've continuously played from behind the start of the year. He has got just 4 targets through 2 weeks, ranking dead last in target rate per route run for running backs. But I think if you own Lamar Miller, you're still rolling him out there. The running back position is very ugly. And if you own him, he's in your lineup.
Yeah, unless you drafted a guy or picked up someone who's really getting more work or that kind of thing. Like,
Lindsey.
yeah, Philip Lindsay maybe could like. I'd rather start Philip Lindsay than Lamar Miller this week. Lamar Miller is just the most meh player of all time. I feel bad that I am constantly on him, and then he just gives you absolutely nothing more than like a game where you can only look at it and say the word meh. Like it's it. Yeah, it's like, what did Lamar Miller do this week? Yeah, like that's it. Um, anyway, yeah, he's wildly disappointing. He's not getting the work in the passing game. I think that's probably something to do with Watson and like where he prefers to throw the ball. But that's not something that's going to change anytime soon. So yeah, Miller is extremely meh.
Love it. Perfect. Using the M's. Let's pick them all. I am taking the Texans.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Texans as well.
Yep. Screw the Giants. Here we go. Air high five. Boom. On to the Oakland Raiders at the Miami Dolphins. Miami -3 over under 43.5. Fun fact here for you, Walsh, and you already know it because you're obviously the Raiders diehard. Completing 29 of 32 passes in week 2. Derek Carr was the first QB ever to complete 90% of his passes with more than 26 pass attempts in a game. Pretty cool. Despite the loss, that's a cool stat.
I was going to say he is also the first quarterback ever to complete 90% of his passes, no matter how many pass attempts, and then lose that game. So yeah, not as great on that side of it, but still an interesting stat nonetheless, and kind of goes to show you what the Raiders are doing with their offense this year. I think more than maybe how valuable Carr is.
I mean, look, Walsh, you're a half glass empty. I'm a half glass full kind of guy. It's okay. We're different people when it comes to the fun facts.
Yeah, I've been the eternal optimist with both the Raiders and the Mets for like my entire life, and this year of the Raiders and the Mets has like completely turned it over. I could not be more pessimistic after my entire life as an optimist, and it's tough. I guess riding that pessimism, I don't think you should play any Raider except for maybe Amari Cooper. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think Jared Cook, if you wanted to roll a tight end, spin the tight end wheel there with Jared Cook, I think you could do it. But I'm not like overly enthusiastic about it. But I think he'd be okay as a low end tight end one, boomer bust.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, he's definitely a guy we've seen like very diverse outcomes for him through week 1 and 2. I think it's the same thing with Cooper, where we saw 1 target for him week 1 and then 10 targets for him week 2. I think what you're hoping if you're a Cooper owner and you're going to play him is that they're using him in the slot more, because the Dolphins boundary corners are pretty good, but they've been a little bit more vulnerable in the middle of the field. So I mean, Cooper's really the only guy I want to play on the Raiders. And if you've been riding Marshawn and you're going to keep riding him, you better hope he scores a touchdown, because he's not really giving you much else.
Yep. You need him to fall into the end zone for sure. Walsh on the other side of the ball, Ryan Tannehill. He's looked good for the Dolphins, but he's thrown just 28 and 23 times over the past 2 weeks, ranking 27th in passing yardage. So there's no volume there, but good for him and the Dolphins. I'll say on that. Kenyon Drake, great matchup here against the Oakland Raiders, gassed for 113 and 152 yards on the ground so far this year. Frank Gore is going to get his, whatever. It is what it is. Kenyon Drake's my guy there.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake's the guy to play. Even with this timeshare, you would think the Raiders defense has been bad enough that they should be just fine. I'd also like to bring in the narrative that the Raiders traveling to the East Coast to play early games has historically been bad for them, and particularly traveling to the East Coast to play the Dolphins for whatever reason has been bad for them. There's like a very decent chance this is like a 31-3 blowout.
Wow.
So it like one of my dad's coworkers was a huge Dolphins fan. My dad was obviously a huge Raiders fan. So like I am very aware of when they play each other. And when the Raiders go east to play the Dolphins, it does not work out well for the Raiders most of the time. So if that's the case, you would think Kenyon Drake would really, really eat here.
Wow. All right, Walsh. Well, with that inside scoop, yeah, I'm with you even more on Kenyon Drake. It's a hell of a prediction, 31-3. Sorry. But you're honest. I see the pessimist in you. I see it now. It's all, dude, it's all oozing out.
The I'm letting the evil course through me, I suppose, as Emperor Palpatine would say.
I mean, Ebron would agree with you, man. That's why you're Mr. Ebron. So I get it. And I can feel you seething as I call you Mr. Ebron. So this is fun. This is good. Everything's great. Kenny Stills, is there enough volume there for him? Devontae Parker comes back into the fold. You know, we talked about Tannehill's lack of volume and it's in and of itself. Is there going to be enough here in the passing game to care?
It's tough. I mean, I'm not dying to roll out Kenny Stills in any sort of way. I think if you need to play him, he's definitely the best start on the team. But this is a team where they're not passing the ball a ton. We don't expect them to need to pass the ball a ton this game. And when they do pass the ball, they're spreading the targets pretty evenly among Kenyon Drake and the wide receivers in Stills, Amendola, and even guys like Albert Wilson. So yeah, or Jakeem Grant as well. So with Parker coming back, it makes it really tough to really predict anything. You're kind of throwing darts no matter who you choose.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's pick them, and I'm gonna Walsh. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna take the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Dolphins too, man.
There it is. There it is, Walsh. You just came full circle to wrap up the very first part of the week 3 preview. Picking against the Raiders after all that's statistical, and I'm glad you weren't just putting the blindfold on and picking the Raiders blindly. That's it. The Dolphins sweep. We were pretty much on point there, except who did we split on?
It was the Denver Baltimore game.
Yeah. Okay. So time will tell. Maybe part 2 we'll have a little bit more of a split and more arguments, but we seem to be in line here. Walsh, do you have anything else for these fine folks before we break on out of here and get ready for part 2?
No, come back for part 2. Shrek and I are going to record it right after part 1, but you probably won't hear it until the next day after you listen to this.
Yeah. So perfect, guys. So get ready.
Inside baseball.
Hey, there we go. Part 2, guys, coming up. And get ready for a big week 3. We hope to hear about lots of more wins. And yeah, for Let's Talk Fantasy Football, I'm Nick Shrek. He's Nick Walsh, or should I say Mr. Ebron. We will catch you on the flip side. Sorry, Walsh. I couldn't help myself.
No, you're good. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to take a piss and grab some more podcast wine, and then I'm ready to rock.
Great. I'm going to grab some drink as well.
Okay. All right.
Here we go.
Cool. Yeah, whenever you're ready, I'm good.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, Nick Schreck, and I want to wish you guys a very, very, very happy Friday morning. That's right. We are back for part 2 of the Week 3 preview, and I have a very, very special guest here with me, guys. It's the one, the only Eric Ebron. Walsh, what's up?
God damn it. I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing pretty good. Ready to talk some week 3 games, get through the second half of them, and hopefully lead everyone to some well-deserved victories.
Hey, that's it, man. That's the name of the game. We want the W's, and I'm going to tone back my Ebron comments because if you felt a little shook there for me, so we want to make sure we give the fans what they truly deserve here as they go into week 3, because it's a big week for those that are going in 0-2. You need that bounce back. So hopefully you played the wire well. Hopefully you listened to some of Walsh's recommendations here to Walsh and Rogers as they talked on the recap and Thursday night preview, and some of those guys may still be on your wire, guys. So if you need them, you need help going into the week, go there. If you have questions for us, hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, Good Talk, you name it. We're there, and we'll get back to you guys because we want to see you win. But Walsh, let's give a shout out here to Auction Draft. Guys, while the NFL season may have officially kicked off, your hopes of drafting a fantasy team for 2018 isn't gone. With Auction Draft, you can draft your team at any time and have a 5-week season with your friends. That way, when you pay way too much for Le'Veon Bell, hoping he shows up, you'll get another shot to get it right in 5 weeks. You can sign up now by going to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/auction draft and use the promo code LTFF and save 50% off your league. So guys, right over there, check Auction Draft out. Use the promo code LTFF, and James is going to hook it up. He's a great guy. They've got a ton of listener leagues going on over there, and we have no doubt that you are going to love it. But Walsh, what we're going to love here is some Green Bay at Washington. Over-under coming in at 45.5. Green Bay -3. And let's kick it off with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, obviously banged up. We've already started to see quite a few questions coming in from listeners and people on the site about, am I sitting Rodgers, depending on who else they own, because they're worried about the injury here and if he can continue to perform for them. Is the injury concern you, or are you playing Rodgers without question?
I mean, I'm playing him unless, I think one of the questions that we had was Ryan Fitzpatrick or Aaron Rodgers this week. And in that case, it's like, all right, play Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's in a good matchup. He's on a fucking tear. Like, sure, why not? But I think in, 90% of cases where you're debating between Rodgers and someone else, again, unless they're in an elite matchup, you're taking Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Absolutely. Always bet on the safe guy here coming out. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, you own him, you're playing him. He scored in 4 straight games dating back to last season and saw 12 targets against Xavier Rhodes last week. Definition of a stud, Devontae Adams.
Yeah, absolutely. Lock him into your lineup every single week until further notice.
Love it. Randall Cobb, Walsh, he struggles against the Vikings, which is nothing new for Randall Cobb. But I think you can put him back into wide receiver 3 category here. We watched Fitz post 776 against the Redskins here in week 1. I think Randall Cobb can have himself a similar day.
Yeah, I have no problem with playing Cobb. At any point, really, I think Cobb, Geronimo Allison, who we'll probably talk about next, and like Jimmy Graham, like I think all of these guys are sort of in the same range in terms of the floors and ceilings that you can expect from them, where Aaron Rodgers should theoretically be able to support 4 guys, but we'll kind of see how it goes. There are going to be some weeks where Cobb's going to be down, where Allison's going to be down, where Graham's going to be down, and there's going to be other weeks where they're up. So play them in your lineups based on the matchups of your other wide receivers and hope the weeks that you play them are the weeks that they're up.
Fair enough. You hope for the good hit. Let's talk Geronimo Allison, Walsh, as you said. I've seen some ownership levels that are still pretty low for a guy who's seeing a decent amount of volume. Like you said, with Aaron Rodgers there, he's caught 11 of 14 targets through 2 weeks. So kind of pick your poison, like you said, with who you believe or who's the right fit for the matchup based on your other wide receivers.
Yeah, definitely. Allison's definitely a guy who should be owned. Whether he should be played really just depends on your lineup and what's going on around it. So keep all that in mind, but he's a consideration from week to week for sure, particularly in a decent matchup against the Redskins.
Yeah. My bigger question for you, Walsh, comes down to the tight end, Jimmy Graham. Do you trust Jimmy Graham? I know you talked about Rodgers in theory should be able to support, when Jimmy Graham went decently high in drafts as people expected with Rodgers and everything else. Do you believe in Jimmy Graham here, in this offense as a whole and in this matchup?
Well, so it's weird because last week I went on a rant about how Jimmy Graham is, he's got such a high ceiling because he's used in the red zone so much, and he's got such a low floor because he doesn't get targets. And then he comes out 8 targets, 6 catches, 95 yards, which is like the complete opposite of what I was saying about him.
Yep.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that we got a game like that from him. Where he was able to produce despite not getting the red zone looks that we expect from him. So, the touchdowns are going to come. We haven't gotten any yet. Even if we're not getting 8 targets a week, I think Jimmy Graham's fine to roll out on a week-to-week basis.
All right, fair enough. You look at the running game here, Walsh. Aaron Jones is returning for the Packers. Jamal Williams obviously is, we'll say, been the guy there. I think Jamal Williams is still the guy here this week if you're rolling one of them out there. His pass protection, I think, keeps him on the field. Washington's 24th in yards per carry allowed to backfields this season. So, but I think Jamal Williams is the running back I want out there if I'm going to put one of them in my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to play anyone in this backfield. Williams is definitely the guy. He's another guy where maybe if they get a red zone, if he gets a touchdown at any point really over the past 2 weeks, your outlook on him is a lot different. But the point that you made about the pass protection, by all accounts, I'm not an expert on pass protection, but by all accounts, Jamal Williams is good at it. Aaron Jones isn't particularly good at it. There was also a quote this week from Mike McCarthy basically saying that Williams and Montgomery are still going to play ahead of Aaron Jones. Now, maybe that's just coach speak, but to me, Williams is the guy to play. Aaron Jones can stay safely on your bench until he really shows that he has a role in this offense.
Totally agree. Do you have anything else on the Packers side of the ball?
No, let's move to the Redskins.
Let's do it. Let's kick it off with my boy Alex Smith playing for the Redskins. Bit of a letdown week last week. I thought the Redskins as a whole, just not the way I expected that game to necessarily go. He's one of the higher floor quarterbacks based on using his legs. He doesn't typically turn the ball over. Excuse me. He's not a guy I'm going to say rolling out there this week, but I think he's a mid QB2. And Alex Smith will be just fine for the Redskins. He is who he is.
Yeah, he's fine to start. He's fine to not start. In a game where they're behind and they're going to have to throw the ball, you would expect him to be doing a lot of dinking and dunking where, the Packers maybe playing their defensive backs, further back from the line of scrimmage a little bit to prevent big plays. So Alex Smith is fine. And in terms of the dinking and dunking, the guy he's been doing it to has been Chris Thompson. I said over the offseason, I thought Jamison Crowder might lead the league in receptions. That's definitely not going to happen because Chris Thompson is just getting all of these targets that I thought would maybe go to Jamison Crowder. So yeah, another game where it sets up for Alex Smith to sort of have a lot of passing volume and probably a lot of short passing volume. And another game where it sets up for Chris Thompson to just be an elite play in PPR leagues and even in standard leagues.
Which is absolutely fucking nuts. We heard about it. He's not going to be 100% till November. And, I remember Don and I did the podcast where we went back and forth on it sucks. He's not going to be healthy. What's going to go on in this backfield? Obviously after the Geis injury, and he's looked phenomenal and will continue to do so. I think the bigger question, obviously in this backfield, is Adrian Peterson. Everyone's hot on AP, but he's 28 of his 42 touches have come when Washington has either been tied or had the lead. Are you worried about his viability as a fantasy guy here in this offense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, last week we kind of expected them to go out to the lead. That game didn't play out like we thought it was going to against the Colts. So that's the reason. Like once they get behind, Chris Thompson's in that game, and he's sort of passing down Chris Thompson's in that game. So Peterson for me, I don't think they're going to be ahead in this game, and therefore I don't want to play Peterson.
Fair enough. I'm with you. I think it's all Packers here. A lot of catch up. Nice week for Chris Thompson, Alex Smith, dink and dunk. Not an AP week. So for those of you that own Chris Thompson, well played. I should have gotten more shares of him, but I let the not healthy till November concerns keep me away, and I'm regretting my words. But that's it. Hindsight's 2020, right, Walsh?
Absolutely.
Anybody else here on the Redskins side of the ball? I know you touched on Crowder. He's obviously not going to be the leading guy, but anything else fantasy-wise?
Jordan Reed's fine. I don't think he's a bad play. Again, we talked about last podcast, Evan Ingram has 12 targets over the first 2 weeks. Therefore, you want to play him. Jordan Reed has 13. So, yeah, I mean, he also has a touchdown in that span. He's fine. He's a good play, and if you own him, you should start him.
Fair enough. I feel silly for not even throwing his name out there because I do own him. I do actually believe in Jordan Reed and Alex Smith. And I was just looking at my notes. And I'm like, man, it's so light. I just don't understand what I'm missing. And then you said it. And I'm like, oh, man, yeah, I dropped the ball there. But that's all right. Well, so let's pick them. I'm taking the Packers.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Packers too.
Sweep it on through, and we're moving right on to Buffalo. Buffalo Bills at the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota negative 16.5. Over under is 41. Fun fact here, or not so fun fact, depending on if you're a Bills fan or a Vikings fan. Bills have allowed a touchdown on 40% of their opponents' possessions, the highest rate in the league. And the Bills defense has allowed the most touchdowns, 10 in the league through 2 games, which in turn will lead to probably some good things for us to say about the Vikings. But let's start on the Bills side of the ball, and we're nothing.
Done. That's it. There's no reason to talk about any offensive player on the Bills. LaShawn McCoy might not even play, in which case it'll be Marcus Murphy and Chris Ivory, and who the fuck cares?
You summed it up perfectly, Walsh. So like what I meant to say was, let's talk about the Vikings. Kirk Cousins at the helm. His fun fact again here, 6 touchdown passes are the most by a Minnesota quarterback through 2 games since Dante Culpepper in 2004. So there's a blast in the past there with Culpepper. But he's Kirk. If you own him and you've been playing him, it's going to be fine here. Stephon Diggs, Thielen. Diggs leads wide receivers in fantasy scoring over the first 2 weeks over the past 3 seasons. So all good things, I think, for this entire Minnesota offense. Dalvin Cook, Diggs, Thielen, the whole gamut.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cook, despite the fact that he's dealing with a hamstring injury, I think he's still a guy that you roll out there in this great game script. We'll see whether Latavius Murray maybe takes some of that work. If it's a blowout, like if they're up 20 points in the second quarter, like why would you even bother running Cook? But yeah, besides that, I mean, you nailed it. Cousins, Diggs, Thielen, they're all great plays, and they'll all pretty much be great plays every week unless people start getting hurt. And the one guy who's a little bit interesting, Rodgers and I kind of shit on him last week is Kyle Rudolph. He did, he had 2 targets week 1, 8 targets and 7 receptions for 72 yards in week 2. So that's pretty good. I mean, that was also an overtime game in which they were coming back. So yes. I wouldn't really expect to see that kind of volume this week. I think I'm out on him this week, even though tight end is as thin as it is. Do you have a strong opinion on Kyle Rudolph?
I don't feel super strongly, but I have no problem with being out. I think, like you said, based on, you're looking at, I know you guys shit on him pretty hard. So, he goes out there and obviously sees, honestly, I'd rather roll out Ian Thomas, as we talked about on the last podcast. and see what he can do for me. I think there's way more upside than what Kyle Rudolph is going to give me. I think Dalvin Cook, like you said, if he plays, after the first quarter, depending on what the score is, but it's going to be nothing but Vikings here. I'll personally stay away from Kyle Rudolph, but if someone wants to, I get it.
Okay, that's fair. And then the last thing I'll say before we move on, though, is I am going to put Latavius in one of my, probably 10 to 15 DFS tournament lineups, at least one, because I'm really hoping for a Matt Asiata week where he ends up with like 5 yards and 3 touchdowns, like that kind of thing, which I think is monster. Like completely plausible. Like there's a scenario in which that happens for sure.
100%. And it could be that they're up big. It could be that Dalvin Cook is hurt and he's still not feeling good from any of it. You're a sick fuck, Walsh. I'll give you that. Wishing for more Matt Asiata type things coming out of Minnesota. Just when you think you can escape it, definitely not. You definitely can't. So you are definitely sick, but I respect it because I agree that it definitely could happen. I think it's safe to say we're both taking the Vikings here.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Sweep it for the Bills. Good. San Francisco at the Kansas City Chiefs. KC is -6.5, over under 56.5. We'll start on the San Fran side of the ball because I could just gush about Kansas City for hours, but people don't want to hear that. So 49ers, Jimmy G, he didn't really have to do a ton last week, 26 pass attempts. But I think they're going to have to keep pace with the Chiefs this week. He's going to have to throw the shit out of the ball.
Yeah, I think you can almost pencil this in until we say different. You can pencil it in for any game that the Chiefs are playing in. It's a play everyone game. Like on the San Francisco, like the Chiefs are this perfect mix of fantasy opportunity where they've got this incredibly like well-crafted, high-scoring offense, willing to take risks, willing to chuck the ball around, like willing to do all these crazy things. And then also their defense is fucking terrible. So it's like when you combine those two things, what you've got is like every one of their games is going to have an over 50. And every single game, you're going to have people just shooting it out the whole time. The Niners are a great team for this. Jimmy G's a great play. I think, Breda is obviously a great play. I even think you can play Morris. Like if you really want to, like, not that you should be, but like if you're really desperate, you could. Yep. And then like every one of their receivers that's going to play, we'll see whether Marquise Goodwin plays or not. But like Dante Pettis, Pierre Garçon, George Kittle, everyone you're looking at is a really good play this week.
I love it, Walsh. I don't think I could have summed this game up any better. It's going to be a shootout. It's fucking fantasy points galore. From a personal place, I hope Marquise Goodwin does play because I own him in lots of places and it's been a rough ride so far. But you were really early on him, weren't you? Yeah, I overpaid on Goodwin. I'm not going to lie, but and in hindsight, it definitely hurt me with some of my other prospects now as I'm dealing with the Baldwin injury and his injury and McKinnon. But whatever. No one wants to hear about sad Nick. So yeah, but I do like Goodwin. So I'm hoping he's healthy. The Chiefs defense is shitty, is putting it nicely. So it should be a shootout. Patrick Mahomes, fucking electric. And I'm going to cut myself off here because I will just continue to talk about the Chiefs for a half hour. Although Kareem Hunt, I don't want to say worries me a little bit. Just the rushing touchdowns will come. It's just a frustrating own right now if you're a Kareem Hunt owner.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it is a frustrating own, and it's one where you just need to sit back and say it will come in time. It's this offense is too good. Pat Mahomes isn't going to throw 6 touchdowns every game. One of those games, 3 to 4 of those touchdowns are just going to be Kareem Hunt. Like it's just like we keep going back to regression. It's regression. Like it isn't going to be all passing touchdowns. Kareem Hunt will work out just fine.
Yep, I actually think if he has another down game here, which who knows, it could be, he's
buy low.
Buy low. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yep. Number 1 running back on a very, very good offense. You're dead on. If he has another game of okay production, you start sending those offers to the owner in your league.
Yep, and hopefully that owner's lost a game or two and they're starting to panic a little bit. My first pick is fucked. and I think you can get it. You can definitely make out there on what you're going to pay for Kareem Hunt.
100%.
All right, well, so let's pick them. I'm taking the Chiefs.
I'm going to take the Niners here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Fuck you, but I get it. It's gonna be a shootout. It's gonna be a hair pulling kind of game until we get to the end, but fun nonetheless. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers and the Los Angeles Rams. Technically, the Rams are home, but it's both their stadium, so it's like the Jets and Giants, I guess. Rams are -7 over under 48, and let's start on the Chargers side of the ball. I know as Don's listening to this, he is screaming bolt up. And Phillip Rivers, he'll be a QB2. He'll be okay. He's Phillip Rivers. He's going to make some dumb decisions, but I'm not pumped about this offense as a whole going up against the Rams. They're just really good.
No, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's difficult to play people against the Rams. Rivers, I think if you either drafted another quarterback to play based on matchups, or even maybe if you want to pick someone up, I think there are people you can play over Rivers. Yes. It's just not necessary to attack this Rams secondary.
No, and if you own Melvin Gordon, you're playing Melvin Gordon. If you own Keenan Allen, you're playing Keenan Allen. But I think the rest of it, I'm not touching Antonio Gates, even Eckler, who's played well. You're playing against a really good Rams D. I would rather look elsewhere this week if you can.
Yeah, I'm mildly in on Eckler based on the idea that if they go down there, he may get some work. Like if they go down a decent amount, he might end up with some work. But it's difficult. He's a guy I'm relying on him in a couple of leagues. So I'm kind of desperate with it, and I'm going to end up rolling him out in at least one league this week. And I don't think he's the worst play that you could make.
Man, you're hoping for a lot of Matt Asiata bullshit, aren't you, Walsh?
I feel like Eckler's like a different kind of bullshit. Like
he is.
It's the kind of bullshit with like how Jalen Richard had like a very usable day week 1 against the Rams. It's like I'm hoping for Austin Eckler to have like a Jalen Richard second half of that Monday night game.
Yeah. You're right. They're different. It's easier to compare them both as Asiata and call you out for it. But yeah, if we're gonna have a serious conversation, they are different. But it's definitely more fun to just say that you're just hoping for a lot of Asiata bullshit.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I guess let's flip it over and let's talk about the Ram side. Also really good, as we've kind of alluded to. Todd Gurley, obviously I was disappointed last week they pulled him out. I was hoping he was going to go for 50 points, but still a nice week nonetheless. He had cramping I think he came out for?
Yeah, he was cramping.
So, hopefully we'll get him hydrated up. I got a call into him, so he'll eat some bananas and get ready for the game. He'll be good. But, yeah, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, I think they're all fine to play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they're okay to roll out there. I'm going to take a further look throughout the week, and I apologize for not having the information ready at the cornerback matchups just to kind of really figure out who I like there. But I mean, at this point, you can really kind of roll all them out, and you won't have too many issues there at all.
Well, the Chargers are still going to be without Bosa, I believe, right?
Yes, that is true.
Yep. So, not that you needed that to be like, oh yeah, the Rams they're gonna play really well, but it's nice. It's a bonus. I think it's safe to say that we're both taking the Chargers here, right, Walsh? I'm kidding. We're gonna go Rams.
Yes, correct.
And with my poor use of sarcasm, we're going to take a quick break. You guys are going to hear from Auction Draft, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk Bears and Cardinals. And I have a feeling Walsh, he's going to have a lot to say here. Guys, let's take a break. Here's Auction Draft.
Shrek, one quick thing. I can hear your can hitting down pretty loudly in some of that.
Good call.
No, it's cool.
Thanks, Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, that is Auction Draft, and we are back ready to talk the Chicago Bears and the Arizona Cardinals. Chicago coming in here at -6, over under 37.5. And I feel like there's some painful things to talk about on the Arizona side. So let's start on the Chicago Bears side, Walsh, who have looked really good. And I think our text messages going back and forth in the group have kind of just been like, are the Bears like actually good? and I think they are.
Yeah, I'm like super in on the Bears. I think they're a very good team. Sorry, I cut out for a little bit there, so I'm not sure exactly what you said, but I caught the very end of it. And if we're talking about the Bears being good, the Bears are good. That defense is good. That offense is very good. I'm like extremely in on Allen Robinson, weirdly, but yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on the Bears in general?
Way better than I expected them to be. I originally thought, they'd be better, but not anywhere near what we're seeing out of them. I thought their trade with the Raiders was initially silly, because I thought that they were a team that needed more than that one piece. And I'm not saying that they're there ready to run for the Super Bowl, but I was like, they're going to be better, but I don't think like that trade is going to be, the defining piece for their defense and make them look. And I was just wrong. I think as a whole, I was wrong on the Bears. They are really good, and I think they're going to have a really nice game here against Arizona. Love Jordan Howard.
Yeah, 100%. Howard's the guy to go to. He's been great so far this season. I was a guy who talked up Tariq Cohen as maybe a guy who would take work away. Well, Tariq Cohen's been involved. It hasn't been to the detriment of Jordan Howard at all. Howard's been absolutely great, and he's a guy you can continue to play week in and week out, it seems like at this point.
Yeah, and the Cardinals have been, bad against the run, we'll call it. They have a lot of running back 5 and running back 8 back-to-back weeks here. Opposing running backs have totaled 22 red zone rushing attempts against Arizona this year, which is most in the league. Not that you needed any extra incentive to roll Jordan Howard out there, but I'm really pulling for a nice week here from Jordan Howard. Obviously, owning him, I want him to do well, but I think just statistically, he's going to do well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Tell me about your love for Allen Robinson here.
Yeah, I mean, he's really done a lot in terms of the targets and that sort of thing for the Bears, even though they haven't really thrown the ball a ton through the first couple of weeks. Robinson's been the guy who's clearly the number one here. So 7 targets week 1, 14 targets week 2. While that's only turned into 4 catches for 61 yards and then 10 catches for 83 yards. You can see that there's more there to be mined in his performance. He's another guy we talked about, buy low options before. I think if you're in a league where the Robinson owner maybe isn't as sharp as some other people, you might be able to sneak a great deal from him or for him at this point. And it's something you should do before he really has his breakout game that he's bound to have.
Fair enough. Good stat here coming from Roto World. He has 54% of Chicago's air yards. That trails only Julio Jones so far this season. So, like you said, opportunity abounds, and all good things there for Robinson. My bigger question, Walsh, comes for Trey Burton. He's got 10 targets and 35 receiving yards through 2 weeks. Not that they've been necessarily killing it through the air, but this was a guy I expected more out of going into the first 2 weeks, as much as I didn't expect stuff from the Bears. Is this cause for concern, or is this kind of what you expected out of Trey Burton?
Oh, no, it's definitely cause for concern. As a person who owns Trey Burton in a couple of leagues, I was looking more for like 16 targets, maybe 100 receiving yards through the first 2 weeks. And he has that one touchdown that did save me in one league this week. Definitely needed that in order to pull out the win. But yeah, I'm concerned. I'm not to the point where I am giving up on him, because their game script in general has just been a little bit weird, both games, but it's not ideal. It's not what you wanted, and we'll have to see, exactly what happens going forward. Trey Burton really killed it in the preseason. I know the preseason isn't the regular season, but I'm not giving up on him just yet.
All right. Optimistic that the tide will turn here for Trey Burton. Anybody else on the Bears side of the ball?
No, I think that's about it.
Let's talk Cardinals, Walsh. I know this one has a special place in your heart. We talked about it as we kicked off part 1 of the week 3 preview. You own a lot of David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald, particularly together, as kind of a combo deal. And you felt good, obviously, coming out of drafts. and unfortunately has not gone the way you or any of us have really expected it to go. Do you expect them to bounce back, whether it's here or in the short term, or should owners begin to panic?
I'm beginning to panic. I know I felt good about it coming out of drafts. I think in retrospect that was bad. I think doing what I did in terms of that, where taking the two guys who I thought would be basically the entire Cardinals offense, I think that was putting too many eggs in one basket, and particularly in that unknown of a basket where, one, you have a new quarterback, and two, you have a new coaching staff. So I fucked that up. I don't think I did that well. And I am definitely panicking as a David Johnson owner. I think Fitz will be fine in terms of what Fitz does. Fitz will put up a decent season. He will have some big games. And I don't think you have to worry too much about like a week 2 performance from him. In terms of David Johnson, I am very concerned because the coaching staff had an entire offseason to look at the 26th season and say, yes, this is how you use David Johnson. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can just incorporate the aspects of this, the plays that really use David Johnson to his fullest. We can add those to our playbook. We can add those sorts of routes that he was running, where he was lining up, the sorts of things that he was doing. We can add all of them, and we don't even need to work that hard at it. It was just kind of put in our lap for us to take advantage of as a coaching staff. And they've run him up the middle a shitload of times. It's like the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life, where you just had the blueprint. You had everything you needed. You had an entire season worth of production in which you have 2,000 plus yards from scrimmage. And you just decided, nah, fuck that. We're going to run him up the middle. We're not going to split him out wide. We're not going to put him in the slot. We're not going to get him running different routes. We're not even going to run him outside the tackles. We're going to fucking run him up the middle, dude. I don't get it. I don't get it. I know there was a quote from Steve Wilkes and Mike McCoy this week, like, we need to find more creative ways to use David Johnson. You fucking think so? Like, how do you have one of the top 3, maybe that's generous, top 5 best weapons in football at a skill position, and you're just like,
wasted.
No, we're going to use him very, very basically. We're going to run our own system and hope that he fits into it, instead of tailoring our system to cater to the strengths of our best player and one of the best players in the league. I know I'm ranting. I apologize. I don't fucking get it, and it's really freaking me out.
I couldn't have told. I wouldn't have known if you didn't tell us that. So that I was freaking you out. But yeah, David Johnson. I guess I have to ask. You're still rolling David Johnson out there if you own him, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to not do it. You know, I got it at this point. If you're a David Johnson owner, you're doing one of a couple of things. You're rolling him out there, hoping for the best. You're trying to sell him for pennies on the dollar, or, you know, I guess what I'm looking at is, I'm looking for either a situation in which the play calling demonstrably changes and you can see that David Johnson is getting used in different ways, in which case I say, I'm cool. David Johnson is back. I'm okay with getting his production for the rest of the year. This is fine. Or you're looking for some fluky touchdowns and maybe the play calling doesn't change and you can try and sell him at a better price than what you currently can because you got a couple fluky touchdowns. So either way, you're going to need that production. You're going to keep rolling him out. You're not benching the 3rd overall pick.
Slam dunk, Walsh. I have nothing to add. Nothing further, Your Honor. Case closed. I think with that, we can just pick the game because there's nobody else to talk about.
I played Ricky Seals-Jones the past 2 weeks. I'm a fucking moron. Don't play Ricky Seals-Jones.
Perfect opener. Walsh, are you taking the Bears?
Yeah, I'm taking the Bears.
I'm shocked. I'm going to take the Bears as well, just because Walsh is. Let's talk
no other reasons,
Cowboys.
Just because I am.
Just because Walsh is. I don't actually believe. I think the Cardinals have a real shot there. Sarcasm for those of you who can't pick up on that, because I'm doing a poor job of that today. Well, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. Another shit show in and of itself. Seattle comes in at -1.5, over under 41.5. And let's start on the Cowboys side of the ball. Who, what a fucking just I don't really own any of it, but what a letdown, man. After Fredericks was sick and the center's gone, and Zeke is the only one I think you can roll out there from the Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. Zeke's the only one that you can play on this team. Worth noting, they signed Bryce Butler this week. We'll see if that comes to anything, but obviously not something to worry about right now. I love Bryce Butler, but yeah, Zeke's about it.
Fair enough. Yeah, guys, for those of you that are unsure, wide receivers for the Cowboys have combined for just 24 catches and 286 yards across 2 weeks. So take that. Seattle Seahawks on the flip side of the ball, Walsh. Russell Wilson has been just as frustrating to own as he always has been. And I don't know why I expected this year to be any fucking different. That offensive line is just not good. He's got no time back there. He's getting crushed. I am looking elsewhere from Russell Wilson as a Russell Wilson owner this week.
Yeah, I don't think that's the worst move. I mean, the Cowboys, we know their game plan is to slow the pace down of the game, make Seattle run fewer plays. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad move at all. Wilson's historically a bit of a slow starter. He's a guy who will come slow out of the gates and then really pick it up and do it for you. So it depends on your roster size. I don't think I'm dropping Russell Wilson. And if the choice is between rolling out a streamer and dropping him, I'm probably just rolling him out there. Wilson, that is. But
yep.
Yeah, it's a tough decision.
Yeah, definitely not ideal. Like you said, he is a slow starter, but frustrating as it is. When it comes to the running game, I have no interest in any of the running backs here in Seattle.
No, I mean, it's tough to figure it out. We don't really know what's going to happen. And neither of them have looked particularly great at this point. So yeah, not really for me.
And I think Tyler Lockett's the only one really that you can roll out here from the Seahawks. Although I'm concerned about Wilson, his target share jumped to 19.4% in week 2. His total yards is 134. The Seattle Seahawks, everyone else receiving combines 143 yards. So I think Wilson's going to continue to look for him. You may not have a better option than Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, Lockett's not a bad play at all. He's found the end zone the first 2 weeks of the season, which you can't expect every single week, but he is a guy that Wilson seems to like. The targets are there because they got to go somewhere. I guess the other question is with Will Dissly, who's put up pretty decent numbers, 3 catches each week. The first week was obviously over 100 yards. Second week was 42 and a touchdown each week. Are you buying Will Dissly at all at tight end? We've been talking the whole time about how tight end is a little thin.
Tight end is thin. I want to see, again, I'm conservative when it comes to this stuff. I would like to see it again. I guess with tight ends, it's not crazy, but it reminds me of, as we talked about Will Fuller before, where he's the 3 catches for 100 yards and the touchdown versus like now, obviously Will Fuller has established into the 6-7 reception. So it's consistent, but I think I need to see it again just to continue to see a trend to even feel it. I'm just super worried about Russell Wilson, which in turn leaves me no confidence outside of Tyler Lockett.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think there are worse plays than you can make than Dissly, but I'm not really going after him either. So.
Yep, fair enough. Let's pick it in an ugly one. I'm gonna take the Cowboys.
I'm gonna take Seattle because both these teams suck, and Russell Wilson's gonna be the best player on the field.
Fair enough. I can't argue with that. Walsh, Sunday Night Football, the New England Patriots at the Detroit Lions. New England -6.5, over under a 52. And let's kick it off with the Patriots. Tom Brady gets a great matchup here against a very soft Detroit defense that ranks 29th in passing points allowed. Sam Darnold looked good against the Lions, so Tom Brady should look fantastic against the Lions. You're playing him. You're playing Gronk. For those of you that own Gronk and are down on him, he almost never doubles down on a dud. The last time Gronk was a tight end 2 in back-to-back weeks was weeks 4 and 5 in 2011. So I don't think against the Lions that's going to repeat.
Yeah, don't panic on Gronk. I also, fun fact, I had someone so I'm 0-2. This is the league where I had the shock on the Four Loco that I'm talking about, but
Nice.
had someone try and take advantage of like the 0-2 panic. Uh and also someone who knew I loved Philip Lindsay offers me Mike Williams and Philip Lindsay for Gronk. I was like, look,
Wow.
guy, I know I'm down in the dumps, but fuck off. Um, anyway, yeah, Gronk's a must play this week. You know,
Did
Tom
he
Brady.
did he
Sorry.
text you? No, you're good. Did he text you right after he watched you chug the Four Loco, so he knew you'd be super inebriated on top of being upset?
No, that's the thing. I got this fucking notification at work. And
Oh wow.
it wasn't even like a text to you and be like, "Hey man, let's like work out a trade." It was just like trade proposal out the blue. What you got?
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
"Oh, okay, trade proposal." Wow, absolutely not. And but instead of saying no, I just let it expire because that's when you what you do when it's when you want someone to know you really didn't like it.
Nice little fuck you back, right?
Yep, exactly. Um, but yeah, going back to the game, it's Gronk's obviously in a great spot. It's funny we talk about Brady and like how Detroit was so bad against Darnold and Garoppolo, and it's like because of that and because football is stupid, Brady will probably just like throw up like a dud this week. But it is what it is. You can't bank on that. You have to play Brady. I'm interested to see what you think about the pass catchers outside of Gronk because we had Hogan, he obviously had the terrible week one and then the good week two. We have Josh Gordon. Do we have news in terms of like whether he's actually going to play?
I have not seen anything yet. Again, guys, we're recording Wednesday night. I know I gave you a really, really nice happy Friday morning greeting, but it's Wednesday night. So I'm just going to be straight up honest with you on that. So you probably have got Josh Gordon news by the time you're listening to this. But I'm giving a quick search here. He practiced with them. That's it. I just see that he practiced. So
Okay.
I think Gordon, it's unrealistic to expect really anything right this week from Gordon. You don't know. He's got to learn the playbook. He's got to get in there. I know it's Tom Brady. I know Gordon's talented, but it's not a gamble I'm taking this week
Yeah.
because you don't know.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
So,
I think it makes it interesting if he doesn't go. I think Philip Dorsett. I mean, Dorsett's had 7 targets each of the past 2 weeks, and he remains kind of interesting to me.
yep, I think I like Dorsett the best. I mean, I know Hogan had the better week, and he may be safer. I don't know if it's even a fair statement to say, but I think I like Dorsett the best here with Tom Brady outside of Gronk, of course.
Word.
So that's that. As far as the running backs go, I mean, we don't really have any clarity on who's quote unquote the guy there, right?
Yeah, I don't fucking know. I mean, I think White has the best floor in PPR, but I want to see how the usage breaks down on a week where Burkhead isn't on the injury report going in or like that kind of thing. It's really difficult to see who's the guy at this point, but I'm not really comfortable with any of them except maybe White in a flex.
Okay, fair enough. I have nothing to counter on that. So let's flip it and talk on the other side of the ball. Matthew Stafford. Interesting. I'm just reading this now for the first time. He's at home against the defense allowed the QB4. I didn't realize that Bortles was QB4 last week. But I don't expect Matthew Stafford to put up a QB4 week here against the Patriots. But I do think that Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, and Golden Tate are all startable wide receivers going into this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine with starting Stafford. I'm fine with starting Tate and Golladay in particular, and then Jones I don't think is bad. I do think it seems like Golladay has surpassed Jones as the number 2 guy in this offense at this point, but we'll see how the season progresses. Maybe that's just a matchup based thing. Maybe that's just a little bit of variance coming into play at this point.
Fair enough. My boy Kenny Golladay, for those of you that don't know, loved him last year, and I was just a year early. So it is what it is. I swung and missed. I held him for weeks and weeks, hoping, and that didn't go well for me, as you might expect. But from the running game, Walsh, Theo Riddick, Johnson, Blunt, I think Theo Riddick's the only guy you want anything to do with here from that position for the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mind Theo Riddick at all in a game where we expect the Lions to be playing from behind. He's had 19 targets over the first 2 weeks of the season. So even in this running back committee that they have in Detroit, you would think that if the game script goes as we expect, Riddick should have a passable game for you.
Yep, I agree. Totally worth it. And interesting, I think, for DFS. I don't know what his price is, but again, we could jump into that stuff later.
Yeah.
And then Walsh, let's pick this game. I'm taking the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm taking the Patriots too.
Boom, there it is. Last game of the week, Walsh. Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously with their own turmoil against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pittsburgh comes in at -1, over under 53.5. And let's start on the Steelers side of the ball. Obviously, still no Le'Veon Bell. We lost Antonio Brown, not show up on Monday. Caused quite a stir, but he is back with the team. What do you expect out of Big Ben? He goes on the road historically, struggles a little bit more there on the road, but looked good against Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to oversimplify things too much, but I think this is another start everyone game. The over-under is 53.5. It's supposed to be a close game. We've got two teams who were both involved in shootouts last week. For me, I think Ben's a great start. I think everyone Ben's throwing to is a great start. We'll see if anything comes of this Antonio Brown thing. I would expect him to just be in his normal role come Monday night. But yeah, I mean, Ben, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, I think you might even be able to get away with James Washington. Like, am I out of line for saying that? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know that I would roll with Washington, but I agree with you the rest of the way.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely fair.
I'm risk adverse, Walsh, so my answer shouldn't be a shock.
Correct. Yeah, that's definitely true. With Washington, he did have 5 targets this past week, only caught one of them. It was a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a start everyone game. So it's you can pretty much start every Steeler that you would think about regularly starting. What do you think about these tight ends though? Because we should have Vance McDonald back to like full health this week. And Jesse James has like been killing it, but he's been doing it averaging like 28 yards a catch or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, something crazy.
Yes. So I don't know. Do you think either of these guys is worth starting?
I mean, you look at the Bucs, they've allowed the tight end number 11 and tight end number 3 in each week respectively. I don't know, man. I think I go back to regression there on that, and coming out at 29 and 28 yards there per catch. I mean, it's probably a I don't even want to use the word safe because that doesn't feel correct. He'll probably have a catch or two, but is it going to be for 29 or 28 yards? I don't know. I think it's a shootout. I just don't know that the tight end is the guy. I'm probably going to roll the dice elsewhere on tight ends.
Okay, that's fair. I'm kind of with you on that. I don't really know which one I would like better than the other, and I don't really feel like choosing. So yeah, I'm not really going to play either. I think
the easy answer. On the flip side of the ball, we've got OJ Howard here, and Cameron Brate. I think they're both still boomer bust. Although I think the volume is potentially there. I'm not going to pick between them.
I'm kind of on Howard, honestly.
Okay.
I know it's probably dumb, but we know he's a great athlete. We know, in terms of these two guys, he's more likely to have the big plays. So if they're both, if they're both going to see, say, minimal targets, say somewhere between 3 and 6 targets in a high scoring game, I'm pretty okay with rolling out OJ Howard in this game.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's going to be a shootout. I don't think there's any question about that. So, Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to continue to sling that pig. I think my only question really for you, Walsh, on the Bucs side is, are you rolling out Peyton Barber?
Fuck no. Barber's an interesting guy because he is getting a huge volume of touches. So the work is there. I think the issue for me is just that it's been all passing games so far. And in a game where I don't think they're not gonna come out and be able to be like, we're gonna establish the run, for like
Yeah.
3 drives or whatever. Like if they
Yep.
try and do that, they're gonna find themselves down 17-0 or 17-3 within the first couple drives.
Yeah, it's gonna go bad.
So I mean, like, I know Barber's getting a lot of work. I know the amount of work that he's getting should theoretically lead to much better games for him in the future. And I do own him on some rosters. I'm not rolling him out there. I don't think it's really worth it. I think right now at this point, at least until we get a matchup for the Bucks where it shouldn't be a shootout. You're playing the passing game. You're not playing the running game.
Fair enough. I'm with you. 100%. He's staying on the bench. I just wanted to ask to make sure other people didn't take our start everyone
Right.
literally to apply to Peyton Barber. So that's the only reason I threw it out. But otherwise, I am with you. And let's pick them. I'm going to take the Bucks.
I'll take the Steelers to split it, but I'm like intrigued at the Bucks. I really
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you could go either way here on either of the teams, but yeah, we'll split. I mean, we didn't have a ton, so we'll go with the split for sure, Walsh. But
yeah,
it has been a fun prep here as we go into week 3, Walsh. Always a pleasure diving into the games, and we're excited. We're hoping for a bounce back here from you from 0-2, and for everybody else out there, go get that win. Look at some of the options we talked about. Kareem Hunt. We talked about trying to trade David Johnson. We talked about Allen Robinson, possibly getting him before he goes off. So take a look at your roster construction, some of those options out there, and send some trade feelers out there. You might be able to get some value. And it's not a bad thing to do because we're in week 3 and people start to panic quickly. Don't send offers like Walsh received for Gronk because nobody likes those and you're just an asshole. But other than that, if you make a fair offer, you could walk away with some value.
Yeah, 100%. I'm right there with you, Shrek. Everyone have a great week 3.
Yeah, guys, I am Nick Shrek. Here's Nick Walsh for Let's Talk Fantasy Football. We'll catch you on the flip side.